What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I wanted to hop on and talk about a country and a story that I think is going kind of unnoticed with all of the major mayhem going on in the world, whether we're talking about Israel and Palestine or Ukraine and Russia. But have you heard about the story of the evolving events within the country of Ecuador? So, those that don't know, Ecuador is a relatively small country, comparatively so by its neighbors, nestled in South American Andean mountains along the Pacific coast. And their country also includes the island chain of the Galapagos Island, known for their famous finches and Charles Darwin, the person who pretty much coined the phrase of survival of the fittest. So Galapagos Island and their fame, unique biodiversity, which Latin America, especially this part of Latin America, is very much known for. So the story is that President Daniel Noboa, who some people may call a gringo president, I have seen this critique of him because he's born in Miami. And if you look at his resume, he could pass for an American politician. He's a son of Ecuadorians and he grew up in Ecuador, but he was born in Miami, went to some of the finest schools of America, whether we're talking about Kellogg's Business School in Northwestern or we're talking about Harvard, has an illustrious background, and he's been elected to president of Ecuador during a very, very challenging time in Ecuador history as Ecuador has begun to start to deal with large amounts of crime related to drug related activities. It's almost seemed ironic as a country such as El Salvador starts to hamper down and try to get its hand around this criminal activity and drug trafficking. All of a sudden, bam, pop out the other side of the balloon. Ecuador has now a recent influx of more severe crime, gang, and drug related activity. Now, as we all know, a lot of the drug related activity in Latin America is fueled by American demand for some of the drug products that come from Latin America, with Ecuador not being an exception. So this is in the background. Nevertheless, President Daniel Noboa, one of his one of his recent forays has been to push for the establishment of American military forces within Ecuador. So recently, he's already basically signed permission for American forces to operate near Galapagos Island for area patrol, sea patrol, etc. And of course, this is getting much protest because of the exceptional biodiversity of the island. Many people are not for it. They're not for building bases there, American troops there. Basically, with this permission also comes you could say the feathers along with it. Now American forces are going to be able to follow a different sets of rules. They're not going to be subject to Ecuadorian sovereignty. It's going to basically be U.S. jurisdiction. So President Noboa has already taken steps in that way, and he's even talking about going further with allowing more American military access and basically changing the legislative framework within Ecuador to allow American military forces to operate within Ecuador. And I thought this was really, really interesting because this is profound geopolitically. So, of course, America had access to this area during World War II. There's famous battles around here. But the point of the matter is Ecuador, especially with the Galapagos Island, they flank South America, especially the Pacific coast. And it really gives America a stronghold in the part of the country, especially considering right there in the neighborhood as Panama. And America has been going through its fair share of issues with Panama as it's disputing some of China's influence within the region. And Ecuador will kind of check this power as well. It also gives America a strong military outpost because Ecuador is relatively small. It's a good sized population, about 20 million people. But from a relatively small location, America can use this as a lily pad to basically impose influence within the Pacific Andean region of South America. And from there, America could threaten or influence countries within the region and beyond. as far as their planes can fly from the bases of Ecuador. This brings countries such as faraway countries such as Venezuela, Suriname, Brazil, Paraguay, Bolivia, all these countries, Chile, it would bring these countries closer to American forces in a very direct way, basically making Ecuador an American outpost. That's what it will basically do. It will make Ecuador an American outpost. So this is very interesting because this is, you have this president, and of course he's going to have a controversial background, being that he's having these pro-American policies, and he's also having an American background. That's of course going to be controversial, but it's also a president struggling with crime and gangs, and to a degree that he feels as though he doesn't get the support that he needs to win. And what this would do is have America be his insurance policy to ensure stability within the country and to supplement his forces in the crackdown of violence. So on one hand, and he's doing what he's using that with the most valuable thing he feels he has available, which is his geography. Now he said they said there's been talk with him and Eric Prince. Everybody knows Eric Prince, famed Blackwater, the private security firm. Um, Eric Prince is talking about this as well. And these are our modern day American geopoliticians, whether that's Elon Musk on the moon or Eric Prince working in the tropics, trying to push American influence throughout the world through foreign policy. So I really thought this was an interesting story because I do think this is a game changer. And anybody that knows anything about America and Latin America and the history, it is sown with tragedy. America has pretty much what we would say sunned Latin America. America sits on Latin America like a lid. And what I say there is only so much can occur, especially around the Gulf region, the Caribbean region of Latin America, that America doesn't influence. Whether you're talking about Haiti, Dominican Republic, Central American countries, Grenada, etc. America will make its presence felt if it feels as though one of these nations in this area starts to get too strong to challenge its interests. And you always say Cuba, but you guys know I don't trust Cuba. I think Cuba has been one of America's great allies, if you ask me, whether that's from milking the Soviet Union, allowing the Americans to operate within Guantanamo Bay. And somebody told Americans, you can say it was surveillance plane, but somebody told America, Soviet Union was to put missiles in Cuba to aim at America. How did them, there you go. Like I said, Cuba, beyond their rhetoric, the Cuban regime has proven that the biggest sufferers from that regime is not America, it's the Cuban people. It's the Cuban people that have sat inside of the constraints of a bad economic system. So I don't even put Cuba as a challenge to American influence. Cuba has not grown stronger to challenge American influence. It has grown weaker and meeker in time under the current rule. Nevertheless, as I said, American influence is heavily felt throughout this region. And if Ecuador was to do this, it's basically putting America on the other side of the Panama Canal. Like, America does have West Coast, but the heart of America is east of the Mississippi River. The heart core of America is east of the Mississippi River, with the exception of California. So, which is a powerhouse on its own, but California is kind of out there by itself. So, that being said, this takes American forces and puts them in the southwest region, or what you can say in the northwest of South America, but on that Pacific region in the southern hemisphere, really giving them, or close enough with Ecuador or along the equator, but bring them right there on the equator of the New World, allowing American influence to be felt just as much in South America as it could be felt in North America. So it's going to be real interesting how this story evolves and how much President Noboa is able to actually accomplish and partner with America. This is the regime to do it. America first, outside of some questionable decisions, that's supposed to be this current administration under President Trump. And this is really old school. And this goes back to hemispheric security, which Trump talks of of Greenland and Panama, hemispheric security is definitely up there at the top of his list. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any insights, you think I'm getting it wrong, if you have any experience or familiarity with Ecuador and some of the opportunities they provide with partnering with the U.S., feel free to comment below. As always, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.